one knows who was participating. So, next morning, bright and shiny, the sailors on the ship get their orders from the ship owner to, bring all the tea over to the store, and they go up on deck to see all the tea, and there is no tea. And they call the ship owner up and says, where's the tea? You told us to go get the tea and to take it to the store. And the ship owner says, there must have been tea here. There was tea here yesterday. Where did it go? And he looks all over the ship, and then he sees something out floating in the water. One of the boxes of tea was floating, and he found out somebody must have been on the ship at night and dropped it over. Well, you can imagine that the king gets the news from the ship owner again. He's expecting a big boatload of money coming so he can pay his bills. He's still got the bills. Ship owner comes up and he says, I just have bad news and bad news. You don't have any good news? The king says. No, just bad news and bad news. One is I don't have any money for you. The colonists don't want to pay taxes. They're going without tea. They're not buying any more tea from you. And the second is I can't sell it to anybody else because it's in the ocean. There was a Boston Tea Party, and all of your tea is at the bottom of the ocean. The king is really mad. He sends more and more soldiers over there to tell the colonists, pay up, come on. And so this causes a really big problem. And the colonists are being treated so rudely by the king that they don't want to be a part of England anymore. So they write the Declaration of Independence. They send that to the king, and the king goes, what? My colonists, I fought a war for them so that they could have their land, and now they don't want to be a part of our country? And the colonists said, yeah, we kind of want to go our own way now. And the king says, no, we're not going to let you go. You're part of our country. You're going to pay these taxes, and I'm your king. And they said, no, we don't want to be a part of your country. They even sent letters over, to explain to the king why they didn't want to be part of the country. But it didn't go so well talking to the king, because he's really mad because what? He wants to pay his bills. He wants the tax. So a war was fought. It was called the Revolutionary War. And it was the colonists against England. And it lasted for a long time. They had extremely interesting battles. And you probably remember one when they didn't even shoot, the colonists didn't even shoot one cannonball, and they won the battle because they had taken cannons. Lots of soldiers are in Boston, and Boston has a hill up here, and most of the city's down here, and the colonists got cannons, and in the nighttime they put the cannons along the edge up there, and so they could eventually, if they had to, shoot their cannonballs into the city of Boston and scare the soldiers away. But they didn't have to shoot anything that night. They put it up there at night. And so you can imagine that all these colonists are waiting to see what happens the next morning. So dawn breaks out. And the soldiers, the English soldiers that are in town, get up and they get out of their tents and they're stretching and they're going, oh, another day in America. I wonder what's going to happen. And then they realize they woke up all the rest of the soldiers. And they got so scared that they didn't even have to shoot the cannons. All the English soldiers got back on the ship and went out to sea. That was a battle. And all the Americans are probably up on the hill chuckling because they didn't have to spend any ammunition and they won the battle. And so it was battle after battle. And at first, England was doing a lot better than we were. But Americans don't give up. They don't give up. And so eventually we won the war. And that's where we're going to start in third grade history. Because now we've got a country that doesn't have a lot of rules or a government that makes the rules of how to handle people. Because as you realize, you need rules for people to get along with one another. We have rules in our classroom so we can get along with one another. We have rules in our country so we can get along with other people in our country. And even when the first colonists on the Mayflower, before they would let anybody out on the land, they said, we got to make rules. And they made rules over here. The Mayflower Compact were our first rules. And they signed, all the dads signed their name to it. And those were the rules for the Mayflower, the people that came over on the Mayflower. Then this was our Declaration of Independence that we sent to England, that we wanted to be independent. King George didn't like it. And then now we're going to find out how we have to make rules for our country. God knows we need rules. Because remember when the Israelites were in the desert with Moses, and all those people, thousands of people had to get along, that's when God sent the 10 Commandments so that people could get along with one another. And so we're going to start tomorrow learning about how we're going to go about making rules and laws for our country. So, see you at History Time tomorrow.